The conference room fell silent when I announced my resignation. 23 pairs of eyes stared at me like I'd lost my mind. My boss, Gerald Thornton, leaned back in his leather chair, a smirk spreading across his face. "Let me get this straight, Harper. You're leaving Titanium Industries to start your own company." His voice dripped with amusement. The other executives started chuckling, their laughter building like a wave. "What kind of company?" asked Patricia from accounting, barely hiding her grin. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Software solutions for small businesses. I've been developing an application that streamlines inventory management." Gerald burst out laughing, slapping his desk. "That's adorable. You think you can compete in this market with no capital, no connections, and no experience running a company?" The room erupted in laughter. My face burned with humiliation, but I kept my voice steady. "I believe in this project." "Belief doesn't pay bills," Gerald said, wiping tears from his eyes. "You'll be back here begging for your job in 6 months. Mark my words." I walked out of that conference room with their mocking laughter echoing behind me. My apartment felt smaller that night as I sat at my kitchen table, my laptop glowing in the darkness. The mockery still rang in my ears, but I refused to let doubt paralyze me. I'd saved $42,000 over 5 years, living frugally while my colleagues bought expensive cars and took luxury vacations. This was my seed money, my chance. I opened my business plan for the 100th time, reviewing every detail. The software I'd been building in secret for 18 months was nearly complete. It solved a real problem I'd observed during my years at Titanium Industries. Small businesses struggled with inventory management, using outdated systems that cost too much and delivered too little. My solution was elegant, affordable, and user-friendly. I'd already tested it with 3 small retailers who'd given enthusiastic feedback. The clock showed 2:47 a.m. when I finally closed my laptop. Tomorrow, I'd file the paperwork to establish Quantum Solutions, LLC. My hands trembled slightly as I poured myself water. Fear and excitement mixed together, creating a strange energy in my chest. I thought about Gerald's mocking face, his absolute certainty that I'd fail. That image fueled something fierce inside me. The first 3 months were brutal. I worked 16-hour days, coding, marketing, and handling every aspect of the business alone. My savings dwindled faster than I projected. By month 4, I landed my first real client, a small hardware store in Portland that paid me $3,000 for a customized version of my software. It wasn't much, but it proved the concept worked. My family thought I was crazy. My brother called every week, suggesting I get a real job before I ended up broke. My mother worried constantly, sending me care packages filled with canned food like I was starving. Even my friends from college questioned my sanity. "You had a stable career," my former roommate told me over coffee. "Why throw it away for this pipe dream?" I didn't have an answer that satisfied anyone. How could I explain the fire burning inside me, the absolute certainty that I was meant to do this? Instead, I smiled politely and changed the subject. Meanwhile, I heard through former colleagues that Gerald was telling everyone I'd be back within the year, crawling back and begging for my old position. 6 months in, something unexpected happened. Vincent Palmer, a former colleague from Titanium Industries, reached out via email. We'd competed for the same promotion 2 years earlier, and he'd won. I'd assumed he viewed me as a rival, nothing more. "I heard about your venture," his message read. "I'd like to discuss a potential collaboration. Can we meet?" I was suspicious but curious. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Vincent looked different, tired around the eyes, less polished than I remembered. "I'm impressed you actually left," he said, stirring his coffee. "Most people just talk about starting their own business. You actually did it. Thanks, I think." He leaned forward. "Look, I'll be direct. I have access to a client list from my previous position at Patterson Tech Small Businesses that desperately need what you're offering. I can make introductions, but I want 10% of any deals that come through my referrals." My instinct screamed caution. "Why would you help me?" "Because Gerald Thornton is an insufferable tyrant, and I'm tired of watching him crush anyone with ambition. Plus, I believe your software is genuinely good." I studied his face, searching for deception. I accepted Vincent's offer, and within 3 weeks, he'd introduced me to 7 potential clients. 4 of them signed contracts. My revenue jumped from barely sustainable to genuinely promising. But then disaster struck. My largest client, a restaurant chain with 12 locations, reported a critical bug in the software that caused their inventory data to corrupt. Hours of their work vanished. Panic seized me as I drove to their headquarters. The owner, Mr. Brennan, was furious. "You promised reliability," he shouted, his face red. "My managers lost 2 weeks of data entry because your system failed." I had no excuse, no explanation that would satisfy him. "I'll fix this personally. I'll work around the clock to recover your data and ensure it never happens again. You have 72 hours, or we're terminating the contract and demanding a full refund." Those 3 days were hell. I didn't sleep, surviving on energy drinks and determination. I traced the bug to a conflict with their existing hardware, something I should have tested more thoroughly. By hour 68, I'd recovered 94% of their lost data and implemented a fix. Mr. Brennan grudgingly accepted my solution, but the experience left me shaken. The near disaster with Mr. Brennan's company taught me valuable lessons about quality control and testing. I used part of my earnings to hire a freelance developer named Oscar who helped me identify and fix 12 other potential issues before they became problems. By month 9, my software was rock solid. Word of mouth began spreading. Small business owners talked to other small business owners, and suddenly I was getting inquiries without any marketing effort. I landed a contract with a boutique clothing chain that had 32 stores across the Pacific Northwest. The deal was worth $87,000. I nearly cried when the contract was signed. For the first time since leaving Titanium Industries, I felt like I might actually survive. I allowed myself one small celebration, a decent dinner at a restaurant that didn't serve food in plastic containers. As I ate, I calculated numbers in my head. If I could maintain this growth trajectory, I'd be profitable within 6 months. The math was tight, but possible. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother asking if I needed money. I smiled and replied that I was doing fine. A year after leaving Titanium Industries, I ran into Patricia from accounting at a business expo. Her expression shifted from surprise to something like pity when she recognized me. "Harper, I heard you were still trying to make that little business work. How's that going?" Her tone suggested she already knew the answer and found it sad. "It's going well, actually. We're growing steadily." "That's sweet," she said, her smile condescending. "Gerald mentions you sometimes at meetings. He says you're a cautionary tale about leaving stable employment for fantasy ventures." My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. "Does he? He's not being mean about it. He's just worried about you. We all are. There's no shame in admitting when something doesn't work out. I'm sure he'd consider taking you back if you asked nicely." I excused myself before saying something I'd regret. That evening, I worked with renewed intensity. Their pity was almost worse than their mockery. At least mockery acknowledged I was attempting something significant. Pity meant they'd already written me off as a failure. Month 15 brought a turning point. I was invited to pitch my software at a regional business conference. The audience included investors, established entrepreneurs, and technology journalists. My hands shook as I connected my laptop to the projector, but once I started talking about my software, the nervousness faded. I demonstrated how my system reduced inventory errors by 67% and cut management time by 40%. The audience asked sharp questions, and I answered each one with confidence born from actually using and improving the product based on real client feedback. After my presentation, 3 people approached me with business cards. One was an investor named Tobias Crane, who specialized in software startups. "Your solution addresses a genuine market need," he said, studying me with intense gray eyes. "Have you considered scaling beyond the Pacific Northwest?" "I'd love to, but I lack the capital for aggressive expansion. Let's schedule a meeting. I might be interested in providing growth capital in exchange for equity." We exchanged information, and I tried not to appear too eager. This was exactly the break I've been hoping for. Tobias Crane's office occupied the top floor of a gleaming downtown building. The meeting lasted 3 hours as he dissected my business model, examined my financials, and questioned every aspect of my operation. His associate, a sharp woman named Veronica, ran calculations on her tablet while firing questions about customer acquisition costs and lifetime value. "You've built something solid," Tobias finally said. "But you're thinking too small. With proper funding, you could dominate this niche before competitors catch on." His offer was both thrilling and terrifying. He'd invest $750,000 in exchange for 30% equity. The capital would let me hire a real team, expand marketing, and accelerate development. But it also meant giving up a significant piece of my company and answering to an investor. I had 72 hours to decide. Those 3 days were agonizing. I created spreadsheets, ran scenarios, and barely slept. The money would change everything, but was I ready for what that meant? On hour 71, I called Tobias and accepted his offer. My hands trembled as I signed the paperwork. There was no turning back now. 6 months after Tobias's investment, Quantum Solutions had transformed. I'd hired 8 employees, including 2 experienced developers, a marketing specialist, and a customer service representative. We moved from my apartment to a small but legitimate office space. Revenue tripled. The company was becoming real in ways I'd barely imagined. Then I received an invitation to the National Technology Summit in Seattle, where the industry's biggest players gathered. The registration fee alone was substantial, but Tobias insisted I attend. "This is where deals happen," he said. "You need to be visible." The summit was overwhelming. I wandered through endless booths and presentations, feeling like a small fish in an ocean of sharks. But I forced myself to network, introducing myself to anyone who'd listen. On the second day, I found myself in a conversation with the CEO of Harrison Digital, a major player in business software. He'd heard of Quantum Solutions. "Your inventory system is making waves," he said. "We've been watching your growth. Impressive work for such a young company." We exchanged cards, and he suggested we stay in touch. The connections I made at the summit opened doors I'd never imagined. Harrison Digital CEO introduced me to 3 major retail chains that needed exactly what I offered. Within 2 months, I closed deals with all 3. Revenue jumped to numbers that made my head spin. I was earning more in a month than I'd made in a year at Titanium Industries. Tobias was thrilled. "You're ahead of every projection," he said during our quarterly review. "At this rate, you'll dominate the small to medium business market within 3 years." But success brought new challenges. My tiny team was overwhelmed. I hired 6 more people and leased additional office space. The company was growing so fast, I sometimes felt like I was losing control. Then Gerald Thornton called. His voice on the phone sent ice through my veins. "Harper, I heard about your little success story. Congratulations." His tone suggested he'd swallowed something bitter. "What can I do for you, Gerald?" "I want to discuss a potential acquisition. Titanium Industries is interested in purchasing Quantum Solutions. We're prepared to offer a generous package." The irony was delicious, but I kept my voice neutral. Gerald's offer arrived via email the next morning. Titanium Industries would pay $12 million for complete acquisition of Quantum Solutions. The number was staggering, more money than I'd ever imagined having. But something felt wrong. I reviewed the terms carefully with Tobias and a lawyer. The contract included clauses that would essentially eliminate my role after the acquisition. I'd receive the money, but lose control of everything I'd built. "They want to swallow your company and spit you out," Tobias said bluntly. "They see you as a threat." The realization settled over me like cold water. Gerald wasn't offering an opportunity. He was trying to eliminate competition before Quantum Solutions became too powerful. I called Gerald and declined his offer. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "You're making a mistake," he finally said, his voice cold. "Titanium Industries doesn't take rejection well. You'll regret this decision." "Maybe," I replied, "but it's my decision to make." I hung up feeling both terrified and exhilarated. I'd just made an enemy of one of the industry's biggest players. Gerald's threat materialized quickly. Within weeks, a competitor called Apex Systems launched a product that looked suspiciously similar to mine. They undercut my pricing by 30% and marketed aggressively to my potential clients. Investigation revealed that Apex Systems was partially funded by Titanium Industries. Gerald was trying to crush me through proxy. I called an emergency meeting with my team. They're copying our model and using their deeper pockets to steal our market share, said Kyle, my lead developer. What do? I thought about everything I'd learned over the past 2 years. We innovate. They can copy what we've already done, but they can't predict what we'll do next. We spent 3 months developing Quantum Solutions 2.0, a complete reimagining of our platform. Instead of just inventory management, we created an integrated system that handled inventory, payroll, customer relationship management, and financial reporting. It was ambitious, maybe too ambitious, but we had no choice. Launch day arrived with my stomach in knots. If this failed, we'd wasted critical resources while our competitor gained ground. But if it succeeded, we'd leap ahead of everyone in the market. Quantum Solutions 2.0 was a massive hit. Our existing clients upgraded immediately, and new clients flooded in. The integrated system solved problems businesses didn't even realize they had. Within 3 months, we'd recaptured lost market share and expanded beyond our previous reach. Apex Systems tried to respond, but their copycat approach meant they were always reacting to our moves rather than innovating. Revenue soared to levels that required hiring an actual CFO to manage. Meanwhile, I heard through industry contacts that Titanium Industries was struggling. Their core business faced pressure from overseas competition, and their attempted expansion into software through Apex Systems was draining resources without generating expected returns. Vincent Palmer, who'd helped me early on, sent a cryptic email. Things are shakier than they look. Keep your eyes open for opportunities. I didn't understand what he meant until a month later when a hedge fund called Stratton Capital reached out. They were looking to invest in promising tech companies. During our meeting, their representative casually mentioned they were also acquiring struggling corporations to restructure and sell. Vincent's follow-up email explained everything. Stratton Capital was positioning to acquire significant shares in Titanium Industries, which was more vulnerable than anyone realized. Gerald had made expensive mistakes, including the failed Apex Systems venture and some poorly timed acquisitions. They're wounded, Vincent wrote, and you could benefit from partnering with whoever takes control. The idea planted itself in my mind like a seed. What if I didn't just survive Titanium Industries attacks? What if I could turn the tables completely? I scheduled another meeting with Tobias. I want to explore an aggressive strategy, I told him. What if Quantum Solutions positioned itself to acquire Titanium Industries? He stared at me for 10 seconds before laughing. That's insane. They're 50 times your size, but they're vulnerable, over-leveraged, and bleeding money. With the right partners and financing, it might be possible. Tobias stopped laughing. You're serious. Completely. He leaned back, fingers steepled. It would require everything. You'd be risking the entire company on one massive gamble. I know, I said, but I didn't build Quantum Solutions to play it safe. The pivot consumed everything. I worked with Tobias and Stratton Capital to structure a complex acquisition plan. We'd need to secure massive financing, convince nervous investors, and execute the purchase before Titanium Industries realized what was happening. Stress aged me visibly. I barely slept, surviving on determination and an unhealthy amount of coffee. My team noticed, but didn't question. They trusted my leadership, even when I couldn't explain the full scope of what I was attempting. Meanwhile, Quantum Solutions continued growing. The success of 2.0 had established us as serious players in the business software market. Several venture capital firms approached with investment offers, which I accepted strategically. Each round of funding brought more capital and more credibility. Apex Systems quietly shut down after 18 months, unable to compete. I felt no satisfaction. They'd been a distraction, nothing more. My real target was becoming clearer. By month 36, since leaving Titanium Industries, I'd built a company worth $78 million. It was remarkable, except I was about to risk it all on a plan that seemed impossible. The acquisition strategy required absolute secrecy. I worked with a small team of lawyers and financial advisors, moving carefully to avoid alerting Titanium Industries. We started by quietly purchasing shares through shell corporations, slowly building a position. Stratton Capital provided the bulk of the financing, but I contributed significant resources from Quantum Solutions. The plan was elegant. We'd accumulate enough shares to force a board vote on new leadership. Combined with Titanium Industries' poor financial performance, we could leverage shareholder dissatisfaction to push Gerald out. Then we'd restructure, integrate Quantum Solutions' profitable software division, and create a powerhouse. It sounded simple on paper. Reality was infinitely more complex. Every step required precise timing and careful maneuvering. One mistake could alert Gerald and ruin everything. I barely saw my apartment during these months. My office became my home, paperwork and financial documents covering every surface. My team wondered why I was absent so much, but I couldn't risk explaining until success was certain. The first real move came when we accumulated 17% of Titanium Industries' outstanding shares. Combined with Stratton Capital's holdings, we controlled 33%. That was enough to demand board seats and influence. I'll never forget the board meeting where I walked in as a newly appointed member. Gerald's face went white when he saw me. "What is this?" he demanded, looking at the other board members. "Mr. Thornton," said the board chairman, a gray-haired man named Philip Ashford, "Stratton Capital has purchased significant shares in this company. As majority shareholder, they've appointed new board members, including Mr. Harper Reynolds." Gerald looked like he'd been struck. "This is ridiculous. Harper is a nobody with a minor software company. He has no business on this board. Quantum Solutions generated $42 million in revenue last year," Philip said calmly. "That's hardly minor, and the shareholders believe new perspectives are necessary given our recent financial challenges." I took my seat, meeting Gerald's furious gaze with calm confidence. This was just the beginning. 2 months later, a mysterious figure named Dominic Ferrara contacted me directly. He represented a coalition of international investors who'd been watching Titanium Industries' situation with interest. "We understand your positioning for a takeover," he said during our private meeting. His accent was subtle but unplaceable. "We're prepared to provide the additional capital you need to complete the acquisition. In exchange, we want preferred shares and board representation." It was risky. Bringing in outside investors meant diluting my control. But the math was clear. Without additional capital, I couldn't complete the full acquisition. "What's your real interest in this?" I asked. Dominic smiled. "Titanium Industries has assets that interest us. Real estate, patents, international contracts. Under current leadership, those assets are being wasted. We believe your leadership would maximize value for all shareholders." It felt like making a deal with the devil, but sometimes that's what success requires. I shook his hand and accepted the partnership. The final pieces were falling into place. The takeover unfolded over 6 months, each step calculated and deliberate. We accumulated shares, secured financing, and built alliances with disgruntled board members who'd grown tired of Gerald's leadership. Financial reports showed continuing decline in Titanium Industries' core business. Quarterly earnings calls became increasingly tense as analysts questioned Gerald's strategy. I watched from my board seat, saying little but observing everything. Finally, the moment arrived. We called for a special shareholder meeting to vote on new leadership. The motion was simple: remove Gerald Thornton as CEO and install new management. I'd be proposed as the new CEO. Gerald fought back viciously, giving interviews claiming the takeover attempt was illegal, unethical, and doomed to fail. Harper Reynolds is a child-playing businessman, he told an industry publication. He built one minor success and thinks he can run a major corporation. It's delusional, but the shareholders had seen the numbers. Under Gerald's leadership, stock value had dropped 43%. Revenue was declining. Meanwhile, Quantum Solutions kept growing. The vote was scheduled for Tuesday, March 15th. The shareholder meeting took place in the same conference room where Gerald had mocked my resignation 3 years earlier. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. I arrived early, wearing my best suit and carrying a presentation folder containing my vision for Titanium Industries' future. Shareholders filed in, filling every seat. The tension was electric. Gerald sat at the head table with his closest allies, his expression carved from stone. Philip Ashford called the meeting to order. "We're here to vote on proposed leadership changes. Mr. Reynolds, you have 15 minutes to present your case." I stood, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. I explained my vision for integrating quantum solutions technology with Titanium Industries infrastructure, creating a comprehensive business services company. I showed financial projections, market analysis, and strategic plans. When I finished, Gerald stood to rebut, but his arguments felt hollow, defensive. He attacked my credibility without offering concrete plans for improvement. The vote was called. 67% of shareholders voted for the leadership change. Gerald Thornton was removed as CEO. I was appointed as his replacement. The room erupted in mixed reactions, some applauding, others stunned into silence. Walking into Titanium Industries headquarters as the new CEO felt surreal. Employees stared as I passed, whispers following me through hallways. I'd ordered security to escort Gerald out that morning. He'd left without a word, his office cleared within 2 hours. My first day was chaos. I met with department heads, reviewed operations, and began implementing immediate changes. The company was in worse shape than even I'd realized. Wasteful spending, inefficient processes, and low morale plagued every division. But there was potential. Beneath the dysfunction were talented people and valuable assets. I called an all-hands meeting that afternoon. 300 employees packed the main auditorium, uncertainty written on every face. "I know many of you are worried about your jobs," I began. "I'm not here to destroy this company. I'm here to save it. Yes, there will be changes, but those changes will create opportunity for everyone willing to embrace them." I outlined plans to integrate quantum solutions technology, streamline operations, and refocus on core strengths. Some faces showed skepticism. Others showed cautious hope. That evening, I sat alone in my new office, the city lights spreading below. The desk was massive, the view spectacular. This was Gerald's office until this morning. I thought about the journey that brought me here. 3 years ago, I'd sat at a kitchen table with $42,000 and a dream. People had laughed at me, told me I'd fail, predicted I'd come crawling back within months. Now I owned the company that had mocked me. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt the enormous weight of responsibility. 2,000 employees depended on the decisions I'd make. Shareholders had trusted me with their investments. One wrong move could destroy everything. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "I always believed in you." I smiled, though she'd definitely been worried. But that's what families do. They worry while still supporting you. I pulled up financial reports, beginning the real work of transformation. Revenge might have motivated me initially, but now something bigger drove me forward. The desire to prove this company could become something truly excellent. 3 months into my tenure, Gerald Thornton requested a meeting. I was surprised he'd reached out, but agreed immediately. We met at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant downtown. He looked older, the arrogance that once defined him replaced by something resembling humility. "I owe you an apology," he said after we ordered. "I was wrong about you. Wrong about everything." I didn't respond immediately, letting him continue. "When you announced you were leaving to start a company, I saw it as an insult. Like you were saying our work wasn't good enough. So I mocked you, tried to make you look foolish. But you were braver than I ever was. I appreciate you saying that." I replied carefully. "I'm not looking to gloat, Gerald. I just wanted to build something meaningful. You did more than that. You humiliated me." His voice was quiet, factual, but it was a humiliation I deserved. I'd become arrogant, complacent. I stopped actually leading and just started collecting paychecks. I studied his face, searching for deception, but finding only genuine regret. Gerald and I talked for 2 hours. He explained how losing Titanium Industries had forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about his leadership and character. He'd taken a position at a smaller firm, working as a consultant. The work was humbling, but satisfying in ways his CEO position never had been. Before we parted, I made him an offer. Titanium Industries needs experienced people who understand its history and culture. If you're interested, I'd like you to join as a senior advisor. No executive authority, but your insights would be valuable. He looked stunned. After everything I did to you, you'd hire me? I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in building the best company possible, and that requires putting aside grudges. He accepted, and his return actually improved morale. Employees saw it as a sign that the new leadership valued experience and was willing to forgive past mistakes. Today, 5 years after I walked out of that mocking conference room, Titanium Industries is thriving. We're profitable, innovative, and growing. The company culture has transformed from cutthroat competition to collaborative excellence. I learned that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right, about staying true to your vision even when everyone doubts you. Those who laughed at my dreams, some of them work for me now. Others have moved on, but all of them learned the same lesson I did. Never underestimate someone with nothing to lose and everything to prove.